let's try this. What you should notice about this problem is it has an equal sign. Let's point that out. It has an equal sign, so that's your clue that you're going to solve. Right? If you don't have an equal sign, you can't solve. So when I look at this equation, the first thing that sticks out in my mind, what do you notice about this equation? Do you see that they all divide by 2? I can divide this by 2, divide by 2, and divide by 2. I can divide all the terms by 2. So whenever I see any equation and I notice they all divide by a value, I go ahead and do it. It's really nice because then the numbers are smaller. So that's kind of nice. So now, what is the thing about how do I solve this? The problem that I have is I'm trying to solve for y, but you'll notice I have y squared and I have y squared and y. And they're not like terms, so I cannot get them into the same place. And so I need a different strategy to be able to separate that y squared so that I can solve for a single y. Although I do expect with a y squared, I expect there to be 2 answers. That's what y squared would tell me. So the first rule is it has to equal 0. Okay? I don't know what 2 things, what I can square and then multiply by 6 and have it equal -5. So easier would be if I was trying to make it all cancel, so I'm going to have it equal 0. So it says equals -5, so I'm going to have to do the additive inverse. The additive inverse of -5 is +5. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides of the equal sign, and so you can see there. And so what that's going to give me is y squared plus 6y plus 5 equals 0. So you'll notice this is in the format of ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. And that's going to be important that it is in order. It has to be in order. Okay? Now, what does this say? It says, hey, what number can I square it? Can I multiply it by 6 and then add 5 to it to give me 0? And I'm like, it's not coming to me. But, you know, again, I have this problem. These are not like terms. So I was like, how do I solve for y when I can't get them in the same place? So my next strategy would be to factor. So you want to factor the y squared plus 6y plus 5. Okay, so we're going to factor that. And I have my own little magic factor box that I like to use. I know there are a lot of different factoring methods. Okay, and so I know that if I multiply across here, I get 5y and 1y. And if they're both positive, it gives me 6y. So this factors into y plus 1 times y plus 5. Okay. Now so what's really important is that it equals 0. You know, you had the equal sign and the 0, so make sure it's still there. Don't lose anything. A common mistake for students is to put an equals 0 where there was none, or to forget about the equals 0 when there is one. So just be aware that this does have an equal sign, and I am going to solve. So what I have here, so I've got 2 things that multiply to give me 0. I basically have a times b is equal to 0. And the multiplicative property of 0 tells me that if I multiply 2 things together and get 0, then either a is 0 or b is 0. One of them has a value of 0. So that means either my y plus 1 is equal to 0 or the y plus 5 is equal to 0. Then just bring that down there so you can see it. I just take my factors, and a factor is that little chunk of multiplication. The y plus 1 is times the y plus 5, so I'm just going to go ahead and take that and split them up, and I'll solve. Minus 1, y is equal to -1, minus 5, y is equal to -5. So you'll notice that I have 2 answers, which I expected because I had y squared. So with y squared, I was thinking to myself that would be 2 answers, and I have 2 answers of -1 or -5. I'm not sure which one is the right answer. If this was a word problem, you would choose it based on the circumstances of the problem. One of them would make sense and one of them wouldn't. But in this case, since I don't know the circumstances of the problem, I would have to say it is either -5 or -1 and put it in my curly braces. You'll notice I put the -5 first because it's smaller than -1. And so I just have here a list of possible answers. And so my possible answers are -5 or -1. If you want to check it, okay, if I go back to the original problem here, I have 2y squared plus 12y is equal to -10. So if I go 2y squared plus 12y equals -10. So I want to see, if that works. That's 2 times 25 minus 60. Does that equal -10? And 50 minus 60 does equal -10. So that is a possible answer. And for the other one, see if it works for -1. So I have 2 times -1 squared plus 12 times -1 is equal to -10. And so that's 2 times 1 minus 12. Does that equal -10? So it's 2 minus 12 equal to -10. And it is. So I can just check it by taking my possible answers and putting them back in the original question. And they should be equal. That's the idea of an equal sign. So good luck.